Welcome back. Our focus is a nightmare, but also a dreaded reality. And this time, the victim is a doctor himself, working at a top-notch hospital in India. He lost his father recently in Kerala. Taking to social media, Dr. Ashwin Vinod has claimed his father was rushed to TMH Hospital in Kerala's Kozhikode after complaining of chest pain and breathlessness. This was the hospital nearest to their residence in Kozhikode. The father couldn't be saved, but the son, Dr. Ashwin Vinod, has claimed that the resident medical officer who treated his father at TMH Hospital had not even cleared his MBBS examinations, that he had enrolled in 2011 and still did not manage to clear his second professional exams, enrolled as an MBBS student for 13 years without any progress. Questions are also being raised at the background check done or not done in this case by the hospital. The TMH Hospital, speaking to Mirror Now, has said the concerned doctor practiced in several hospitals and the doctor had his private practice as well. We got to know about the RMO's quote-unquote ineligibility after the incident occurred. We verified the RMO's registration number given to us. The RMO claims only one back paper was remaining. The concerned RMO, that's the resident medical officer, has been suspended. Extremely worrying, because these are also not one-off cases. Courts after courts have ruled on this massive challenge, fraud to say the least, from Tamil Nadu to Telangana to Bihar, even in Kerala. There have been several botched up surgeries, life lost as lifesavers botch up the battle between money and ethics. I've been joined at this point by Dr. Ashwini P. Vinod, who in this case is a doctor but also the victim's son, as well as Dr. Rajeev Jayadevan. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. Do we have Dr. Ashwin P. Vinod? Yes. Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. You'll have to unmute yourself. Firstly, heartfelt condolences to for what's happened to the family, for what's happened to your father. But there are huge allegations that you're making, and I must tell our viewers again that you yourself are a practicing doctor at one of the reputed hospitals in India. But what happened, Dr. Ashwin P. Vinod? What are your big concerns at this point? You'll have to unmute yourself, Dr. Ashwin. We can't hear you. Dr. Ashwin, if you can unmute yourself, or if there's a technical issue that can be fixed. Okay, we'll try and sort this out. Of course, Dr. Ashwin is the son, is a practicing doctor, and his version is hugely important, but he has taken to social media. If we can get on Dr. Rajeev Jayadevan at this point. Dr. Rajeev Jayadevan, it was important to get you as a response to what Dr. Ashwin was saying, but let me start off with you. Allow me to interrupt you whenever we get Dr. Ashwin first, because he seems to be in an area where signals are a challenge. But Dr. Rajeev Jayadevan, from what Dr. Ashwin is saying, he is a practicing doctor in one of the most established hospitals in India, and he's saying when he went for the cremation of his father, which itself is heart-wrenching, it's extremely difficult for any son or daughter to go through, what he realized, the hospital where his father was treated, which was nearest to his house, had a fake RMO in the sense that he hadn't even finished his MBBS. So, firstly, an apology or a statement of regret from the hospital saying we did not know, we got to know about this after the incident and we have taken correctional steps as the hospital has claimed. Is that acceptable? And if we can have the hospital statement up on the screens, please.
First up, Dr. condolences to Dr. Ashwin. It's heartbreaking to lose one's father, and my condolences. It's, as Sneha said, it's even more heartbreaking to know that as a doctor, the person who last took care of your own father did not have a medical degree, and that can be inconsolable, regardless of what the hospital says. So Dr. Ashwin deserves to be thanked for bringing up this important issue as India goes forward with all the progress that we have made. Recently, we heard about fake medicines from CDSCO's recent bulletin. Now we're hearing about fake doctors. So things have to be tightened in our country. Even in a state like Kerala that boasts of relatively good healthcare systems with a doctor population ratio which is well above what is recommended by the World Health Organization. Kerala has one doctor for every 500 people in the population, as we last checked, which is well above the national average. So even in such a state, it is devastating to know that a person who's in charge of the sickest people, in casualty, that's where the sickest people come in. And if a person who's not qualified, not even qualified with an MBBS degree, is seeing these patients, that is deeply concerning. The Indian Medical Association is also deeply concerned, and we've repeatedly said from the association to hospitals to please verify the new recruit doctors' credentials, and also to display the registration numbers on the doctor's notice board. Where they post the doctors' names, every hospital will list the doctors on a bulletin board. They must not only display the doctors' names and degrees, but also the registration numbers. Why? Because the patients and the relatives can verify using the registration number if the doctor is a real doctor or not. We know that India has a very large number of doctors, both trained in the country and elsewhere. And it is also...
No, but Dr. Rajeev, if I can ask you, in this particular case, there was a registration number. The TMH Hospital has said there was a registration number. The registration number was given to the hospital. So, from what appears, he did have a registration number.
Yeah,
so that shows multilateral collapse of a system that's failed.
Right. So a registration number cannot be given without the person passing an MBBS degree. So that must be fake to start with. So at least the doctors, so people can verify that it is real or fake by simply having the registration number. Using the name, it can be difficult. Using an RTI, any citizen will be able to verify this with the respective medical council. I've trained abroad, and in the US, for instance, when you apply for a state license, they will verify directly with your medical school in India to make sure that the certificates you presented are legit or not. And only then will they even consider your application for a license. So the same procedure can be followed by each hospital, especially by the HR department when they recruit new doctors. The established doctors have been there for a long time, but especially when they recruit newer people, this must be taken very seriously indeed. And recently there was another case in the news about a doctor apparently operating on a YouTube video and a child dying as a
Correct.
result. I don't know
that was in Bihar, in Saran.
This happened in Bihar. And a few years ago, an important case came up in Kerala in the government sector where a doctor performed a cesarean section on a woman, and that doctor did not have
if you can have graphics of such earlier cases as well, please, on the screen.
Are we able to see Dr. Ashwin?
That's right, Dr. Jayadevan. Now, while they... No, we haven't been able to. We are trying to get him on board as well. But Dr. Rajeev, if I can just ask you one very quick question. For viewers who are watching us, the first response is to go to a nearest hospital, and the nearest hospital may not be a well-reputed hospital. If you have to trade off between reaching a well-reputed hospital or a hospital that's nearest, often one would choose nearest in an emergency situation. In this context, what should patients do?
Yes, that's a very good question. First up, everyone must know what the quality of medical services that are available in the region are. For instance, in my home, there is a list that is pasted on the wall saying, if I collapse, these are the people you should call. And these are the distances to the hospital, and the ambulance numbers are all listed there. Because when you collapse, nobody else is there on behalf of you to decide, to make a decision. So likewise, every individual must understand where they must be taken in case of an emergency. The answer to your question is, if it is something like an acute chest pain, for instance, sudden onset chest pain or sudden onset weakness like a stroke, take the patient to the nearest hospital. Because even if it's not a very large hospital, the basic treatment for a heart attack or a stroke can be administered. For instance, a clot-busting injection can be given in even relatively small medical centers. We are not talking about a small clinic. We are talking about hospitals. and that you can actually call ahead and alert the casualty medical officer saying, look, we're bringing a patient like this. Are you able to handle this? And this, I talk about snake bite victims. See, in snake bite, for instance, you should call ahead and find out if that hospital is equipped with anti-venom. If the hospital does not have anti-venom, don't waste your time hanging around in a hospital that does not have anti-venom to give to the patient. So I think each individual must know what the capabilities of the nearby facilities are. There's no need to rush to the largest hospital for every emergency. For vascular problems, which I believe Dr. Ashwin's father had, he appears to have had a cardiac problem. It is important to go to the nearest hospital because time is money. Okay, I'm sorry, time is health. For example, in stroke, we say time is brain. If you can get to the hospital an hour early, it improves the chance of survival and also recovery substantially more than waiting 3 hours to get to a, say, tertiary hospital, which is located far away. So the answer to your question is go to the nearest hospital, but also be aware of what the facilities are.
And very importantly, the point that you've made, and I think many of us would think that this would not happen to us, it would not happen to our family members this soon. It's going to be a while before something like this happens, and therefore one doesn't get down to the point of writing those notes and making that list of in so and so emergency, which hospital to go. And I think that's a very important point that you're making. If you have senior citizens, if you have toddlers, even if you have, anybody as a family member living there, it's important to know what would be a first mode of action in case of an emergency. It's always best to be prepared. But Dr. Rajeev, my last question again, and I don't think we're getting Dr. Ashwin. It's unfortunate. I think sometimes we can't do anything when technology collapses. But Dr. Rajeev, my question to you, again, I'm asking you this. What's the role of the hospital in this context? I'm asking you. All right, Dr. Rajeev, allow me to go straight to Dr. Ashwin because before we lose him, we seem to have got him. Dr. Ashwin, good evening again. I believe we've been able to patch you up. I'm really sorry. Also, condolences from each one of us for what you've had to go through as a family. Dr. Ashwin, could you very quickly tell us what are your big concerns at this point?
Ma'am, actually, Papa ko 23rd September ko, he had a chest pain. Typical anginal symptoms the. Then he had a shortness of breath, severe shortness of breath, for which he was rushed to the nearest emergency department. So the nearest emergency department was at the TMH Hospital, जो accused hospital है वहाँ पे. तो उस समय मैं यहाँ पे नहीं था, मैं केरला में नहीं था. I was working at my place in Chandigarh, PGA Chandigarh में अभी I am doing my final year. So I got this distressing call from my mom saying that ki Papa's condition is very critical and he has been rushed to TMH Hospital's emergency department and seems like they are not doing much. So after 15 minutes or so, I called them again. तो उस समय मम्मी ने उधर का डॉक्टर के ड्यूटी डॉक्टर के पास फोन पकड़ाया. तो उनसे बात हो गया तो उन्होंने मुझे बोला कि योर फादर केम ए बिट लेट. So he tried to revive him. He came with a heart rate of 20 to 25 per minute. He tried his level best. He did CPR for 45 minutes. This is what he told me over phone. So I accepted my fate. I traveled from Chandigarh to Kerala and reached Kerala by night. But 3 days later, we again had a medical emergency in our family. That's when we went to the same hospital. So we came to know that the doctor who gave first primary care to my father during that night was Mr. Abu Abraham Luke, who apparently is so notorious in his college because he haven't cleared his MBBS second year subject since 2011. So you can just imagine that person is still not able to clear his MBBS second year subject for the past 13 years. So such a person who is not at all legally, he cannot give even a paracetamol to someone. Such a person has seen my father who had such a critical condition. He came in cardiopulmonary distress. So a proper MBBS doctor who is trained in ACLS and BCLS should have seen my father. When I am delivering my duties as a doctor in such a faraway place, the bare minimum I am expecting from the doctors in Kerala would be that my father would be given the basic primary care before he is referred to a cardiac center. So that was not given to my father because the registered medical officer, he was not at all qualified enough to impart that duty.
Dr. Ashwin, Vinod, how are you looking at proceeding with this?
So this is a clear-cut case of criminal negligence which led to my father's demise. So we are going to go ahead with a criminal case for the time being, both against the accused fraudulent doctor and against the hospital management, which has led to the untimely and preventable demise of my father.
Dr. Jayadevan, if I can get you in, it's heart-wrenching to hear Dr. Ashwin, because look at what he's saying. Dr. Ashwin is saying, when I am doing my duty as a doctor, I expect the least that there would be a doctor doing the duty towards my family. That's not an irrational demand. That is as rational as it can get. That's as rightful as it can get. In this case, it's a doctor's family. In another case, it could be anybody else's family, Dr. Jayadevan. What are we really looking at?
Yes, as I mentioned, I must thank Dr. Ashwin for bringing this issue to focus, and also to thank you for giving it the importance it has deserved. The point here is the issue of trust. See, patients do not go to the hospital for fun. You go to the hospital as a last resort when you can't get better on your own, or when you have an emergency. And we enter the hospital expecting that the person who is receiving us is a qualified nurse and a qualified doctor and a qualified technician. If these are not happening, and then there is a loss of trust. And loss of trust can have severe consequences. And I don't have to elaborate on that. So I think this must be an eye-opener for...
But Dr. Rajeev, one question can I ask you? While Dr. Ashwin is saying that they will go ahead with criminal case against the hospital as well as this particular doctor, we have reached out to the hospital in this case. Is IMA going to... how is IMA going to help in this particular case? In Dr. Ashwin's case, there are many on social media who are saying he should go ahead with a legal case. But a legal case is also extremely daunting. One is really battling the loss of a family member, of a dear family member, and then one has to take a legal recourse as well. How is IMA positioning itself in this case?
Yes, the Indian Medical Association is deeply concerned about this incident. And even in the past several months, the association has sent out repeated reminders and circulars to medical institutions to look out for fake doctors who might be drifters. They may be drifters, and they may talk impressively, and they come up to you. They come up with real-looking credentials. To watch out for them, and also to verify each individual's credentials before hiring them. This is a problem not only in Kerala but also elsewhere. And we will continue our campaign to make sure that doctors who are legitimate will be seeing patients. And also we're concerned that qualified doctors, there are so many qualified doctors in Kerala, many of whom are unemployed. And instead of such doctors receiving Dr. Ashwin's patient and treating him, he received care from somebody who hasn't passed an MBBS course. So that is also a matter of great concern to us.
Dr. Ashwin, I have a question to ask you. I spoke to TMH Hospital, and they, of course, did not send us a representative. I asked them if they would send a representative to the show. We were doing a show at 6:30. They did not send anybody, but I spoke to them. And the gentleman whom I spoke to told me that they had asked for a registration number. They got the registration number. He was asked for his certificates. They got the certificates. And that he is a medical practitioner who has practiced as a doctor in several hospitals. And they had that in the case proof, and they got to know of the quote-unquote ineligibility only after your case came to the fore. And they've also said that it's only one backlog paper that's left. How do you react? What's your response to this reaction from the hospital?
मैम, ये जैसे आपने शुरू में बताया था, ये काफी स्ट्रॉन्ग एलिगेशन है। हमने जो डॉक्टर नाम अपने आप को बताते हैं, ये जो मिस्टर अबू अब्राहम लूक जो है, हमने काफी अपने लेवल पे इन्वेस्टिगेट करके पता किया है कि दिस पर्सन हैजंट क्लियर्ड हिज एमबीबीएस सेकंड ईयर। शायद हो सकता है वो वाला सेकंड ईयर वाला एग्जाम में उनका एक पेपर का बैकलॉग होगा। सेकंड ईयर पास होने के बाद एक थर्ड ईयर का एग्जाम है, फाइनल ईयर एग्जाम है, उसके बाद एक कंपलसरी 1 ईयर का इंटर्नशिप है। ये सब कुछ करके मैं यहाँ पे आज एक एमबीबीएस एमडी डीएम का फाइनल ईयर वाला डॉक्टर बैठा हूँ। उन्होंने अपना एमबीबीएस सेकंड ईयर का एग्जाम पास किए बिना मेरे पापा को कैसे देख सकता है? एंड हु इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर चेकिंग द वैलिडिटी ऑफ द डॉक्यूमेंट विच हैज बीन सबमिटेड टू द मैनेजमेंट? ये मेरा काम नहीं है ना। मैं वहां पे मैं अपना पापा को लेके जब जाऊंगा या मेरी मम्मी को लेके जब जाऊंगा, मैं वहां पे जो ड्यूटी डॉक्टर है उनसे ये तो नहीं पूछूंगा कि आपका डिग्री वैलिड है कि नहीं, आप एमबीबीएस डॉक्टर है कि नहीं। एक ट्रस्ट के ऊपर हम वहां पे लेके जाते हैं अपना पेरेंट्स को या अपना रिलेटिव्स को, एंड वो ट्रस्ट आज ब्रेक हुआ है। वो मेरा रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं है, वो मैनेजमेंट का रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, आम जनता का रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं है। वहां पे जो डॉक्टर है उनका डिग्री वैलिड है कि नहीं वैलिड है। वो कैसे बोल सकता है कि सेकंड ईयर सिर्फ एक सब्जेक्ट का बैकलॉग है? इवन वन सब्जेक्ट का बैकलॉग भी उनको डॉक्टर बनाने से रोक के रखा हुआ है। जब तक वो डॉक्टर नहीं बना हुआ है, हाउ कैन ही मैनेज ए पेशेंट इन द इमरजेंसी डिपार्टमेंट? रात को कोई इमरजेंसी डिपार्टमेंट में जाता है, उसका मतलब है कि इतना ज्यादा उनको दिक्कत हो रहा है, तभी जाके वो हॉस्पिटल गया हुआ है। थोड़ा बहुत भी वो वेट कर सकता है, वो सुबह जाते हैं। रात का 4:30 बजे कोई, अर्ली मॉर्निंग सुबह 4:30 बजे कोई जाता है हॉस्पिटल, उसका मतलब है कि उनका जो कंडीशन है उतना ज्यादा क्रिटिकल है, तब जाते हैं। जो जो जिस टाइम पे सबसे एफिशिएंट डॉक्टर का जरूरत है एक इमरजेंसी डिपार्टमेंट में, और उस टाइम पे इन्होंने एक एमबीबीएस सेकंड ईयर स्टूडेंट को लगा के रखा है। और हमें ये पता चला है कि पिछले 4 साल से वो उसी हॉस्पिटल में नाइट ड्यूटी करते जा रहे हैं। तो वो 4 साल में कितने लोगों का डेथ इनकी वजह से हुआ होगा? आगे कितने लोगों को मारने वाले थे? अभी तो ये पता चल गया, तभी जाके ये रुक गए हैं। अदरवाइज he would have continued to practice the same way. I even came to know that he did not even attempt his MBBS second year exam when he was given a chance a few months back, because he was already earning. There was
Dr.
no
Rajeev
impetus for
Jayadevan?
him to write the exam.
Dr. Rajeev Jayadevan, look at what Dr. Ashwin is saying, and frankly, we are even allowing we called in Dr. Ashwin as a panelist only because he's a doctor with PGI Chandigarh. He has the standing to be saying what he says. There could have been somebody else in his place and we would not call him as a panelist. It's only because of the position that he holds that we are calling him and giving him this platform to speak. Huge questions being raised in this particular case.
Yeah, the excuse given that there's only one paper to be cleared, whether it's one paper or 10 papers, he has not passed his MBBS. That is what I understand. And such a person should not be treating patients. That's the bottom line. So Dr. Ashwin has raised a very, very important issue. And
I cannot thank
not,
you. We cannot thank
yes.
you enough for joining us, for sharing your ordeal. And I just hope that there would be some very strong actions initiated by the police, by the Kerala government, by IMA. There would be a sense of justice. There can never be a closure and a justice to you, Dr. Ashwin. Our condolences again. It's going to be a tough time for the family, but we just hope this would take the right course. And it would be a big, big wake-up call. Thank you very much, Dr. Ashwin, for joining us. And thank you very much, Dr. Rajeev Jayadevan, for joining us as well.